Got it? All right, spread of Islam. Big world-shaping institution. As you can see, Muslims are kind of in the blue and in the purple, combining an enormous swath of the world. Islam will be the last great, not only religion, but culture to date. And we have the foundation of Judaism, which we did with religion and philosophy the other day. On top of that is Christianity. On top of that is Islam. And Islam is going to grow and impact the world starting right around the 600s. So right at the beginning of the European Middle Ages, Islam begins to grow. But Islam is going to be centered in old Mesopotamia, the crossroads of the world, where Africa, Asia, and Europe are going to meet. And it's very important because for a long time, we've got the Roman trade network, we've got the Byzantine Empire, we've got the Persian Empire moving over to the Guptas in China. So for a long time, this area was controlled by regional trade networks. People like to trade. It is a way for them to make a lot of money. Regional empires keep their area safe. This is the land extension of the Silk Road, turning into down here at Axum, the Trans-Saharan trade route, and even along the Indian Ocean. So Arabs throughout world history are going to be traders. They're movers and they're shakers. A lot of people are familiar with them as they migrate around the Fertile Crescent, trading everything from spices to incense to perfume to silk to ivory to gold to salt to even slaves. You name a product, it came through this area. Good? Great. Okay. In this area, in what is today Saudi Arabia, there is a large black stone. And this stone is geologically unlike anything else in the surrounding area. It is going to be believed in some areas the rock on which the prophet Abraham was going to sacrifice his son Isaac. Don't know if that's true or not, but for a long time there's going to be this big black shrine known as the Kaaba. And because the Arabs were traders, around the Kaaba grows this big market. Think of like a big flea market or a big farmer's market. And in that time, when you held a store or a business, a shop, you would have to know what to say to entice people to come in and what might offend them and drive them away. So you had to know many languages, you had to know customs, you had religions, and built into the Kaaba were over 360 idols. These idols were to the many different polytheistic gods of the area. Come into my shop, buy, sell, and trade and worship. It's going to make things easy. By this time, by the late 500s, early 600s, people have a working knowledge about Judaism and Christianity. Both religions grew in the same area of the Middle East. So people get monotheism. But there are a lot of traders who are still polytheistic, deeply polytheistic. And in the Middle East, the word for God is Allah. All right? Allah simply translates as God. Well, in around 570 AD, the prophet Mohammad is born. And Mohammad, when he was orphaned very young as his parents died, and he grows up as a poor orphan. And as he gets older, he begins to work for a lower middle class trading family, a group of merchants. And he's the guy in the back, loading and unloading the cargo. Because of all the different idols, a salesperson, the person who owned the store, would again, what will I say that will entice Daniel to shop, and what can I say that will not offend Xavier or Sierra or Phoebe or Anna? I have to know. I want you to come into my store. Mohammad is in the back stock room, all right? He is not up front bringing people into his business. Well, in his late 30s, things change as Mohammad gets married to a wealthy widower known as Khadijah. Khadijah is very important. She is Muhammad's first convert, and she owned a large merchant business. Her husband died, but she owned the business. Muhammad, who at one time, am I going too fast? Where's Theo? Theo, is this good? All right. At one time was in the back stock room. Now all of a sudden he's responsible for being the main salesman, for going out and getting people to come into the store. And what he had to do kind of bothered him. He had to go out and say almost whatever it took to get people to come into his store. And this bothers him. And he looks at the worldliness and the godliness and the lying and the scheming that his competitors do, and he just, he feels icky, he feels gross. So he goes and he studies with some Jewish rabbi. He's like, oh, okay, 10 Commandments, Torah, Covenant, Abraham, got it, all right. And a lot of it made sense, but some of it didn't. Then he goes and he studies with Christian monks and bishops. He's like, oh, all right, I get it. You know, Hebrews were God's chosen people. Jesus came and like Gentiles and you know, sins are forgiven. It's Sermon on the Mount, and it's great. And it answered a lot of his questions, but not all of them. There seemed to be a missing piece. So Muhammad goes out into the desert and he clocks in. For how long? 40 days. And at the end of the 40 days, well, bam, he's meditating in the cave, and God's messenger angel Gabriel pops up and is like, Muhammad. Muhammad's like, what is going on? What is happening? And Muhammad, you know, is excited because the archangel Gabriel, God's messenger angel, is speaking his language, Arabic. The scholastic languages that were used in business and legal transactions were Hebrew and Latin. And here is God's angel speaking to Muhammad in his own language. He's like, whoa, what's going on? And Gabriel says, you are to rise, Muhammad. God has picked you. You are going to spread the word of monotheism to the Arab people. You, Muhammad, are specifically picked. You are going to go out. You are the last in a long line of prophets. You are going to be the last piece of the puzzle. As I said many years ago, one day I will bring all people to me. You are going to go take the word to the Arabs. All right? I picked the Hebrews. Paul got the Gentiles. You, my man, are going to get the Arabs. So Muslims believe in the Old Testament. They believe in a lot of the New Testament, except that Jesus is not seen as the Son of God. He is another prophet like Muhammad. Same prophets, David, Moses, Noah, Abraham, all those guys are the same. Muhammad is just the last one. And you're going to go out and you are going to teach the Hebrew people that Allah is the one true God. They got to quit worshiping all these false idols. That stuff is just garbage. You need to abandon all those polytheistic gods in the Kaaba. And the word Islam translated means submit or surrender to Allah. So when you become a practitioner of the Islamic faith, you become a Muslim, one who has surrendered. And so Muhammad is going to go back. He is going to tell the people of Mecca that they are crazy. They need to stop, and they need to pay attention. Now, all this is going on right around 600, 630. This is right in the heart of the European Dark Ages. It is just after Justinian's reign in the Byzantine Empire, the Corpus Juris Civilis. If you remember Justinian and Theodora. In China, it is the heyday of the Tang and Song dynasty. Right? So if you think global perspective, this is what's going on. Sui, Tang, Song, it's Dark Ages, it's Byzantine Empire. Everybody with me? All right, what's going on down in Africa? If you don't know, you can always ask them. There we go. All right, just trying to help you guys out a little bit. All right, so now, Muhammad is going to go back to Mecca. And he's going to be like, hey guys, you need to stop all this worshiping of false idols. I just talked to Gabriel, and this is what Allah says. And they're like, who the heck is Allah, man? Who's that? Shut up, Muhammad. You're ruining our businesses. Get out of here. And Muhammad struggles to gain converts. His wife Khadijah is his first convert, but a lot of his supporters get mocked and humiliated and made fun of. Remember, Mecca is a big pilgrimage center, and the merchants don't like losing business, so they attack Muhammad's followers. They don't attack Muhammad because his wife and her family are politically powerful. So in 622, Muhammad tells his supporters to flee Mecca and go to a city about 150 miles up the coast known as Medina. This is an important date as it starts the Islamic calendar. Muhammad's flight from Mecca to Medina. Now, in Medina, everybody kind of buys into what Muhammad is saying. He gets a lot of converts. People rally to his cause, but the Hebrew leaders from Mecca and Medina try and have him assassinated. It fails. Muhammad will then spend the next several years attacking all the trading caravans going into and out of Mecca. They're slowly and economically crippling Mecca. Nobody goes in, nobody comes in. You guys try and kill me and you let me live. Oh, now you're in for a bad day. And in 630, Muhammad returns to Mecca. He gets all the idols in the Kaaba, and then he does something interesting. He sets a precedent by calling all of the people who hated him and persecuted him, and he forgives them. He says, this is about forgiveness. I could kill you all, but I'm going to welcome you into the greater Islamic tribe, the Islamic family known as the Ummah. When you become a Muslim, you become part of the Ummah. In the old days, your loyalty was to your specific family, your specific tribe. If Aaron and I agree to an alliance, we shake hands on it. Well, that alliance works as long as both of us are alive. When one of us dies, the alliance breaks. No more. All right, you're not just the Aarons and the Melegas. We are all Muslims. When you give your word to Allah, you can't break it. And 2 years after this, 632, is, depending on your beliefs, is either when Muhammad dies or he ascends into heaven. But not before uniting most of the Arabian Peninsula. Everybody got it? Okay, good. Now, how do we practice Islam? One of the things that aids the spread of Islam is the relative ease of its practice. All right? There is only one God, Allah. There are no other gods but Him. And Muhammad spoke everything. He recited the Quran, which is God's holy word. And he says exactly what Gabriel said to him. He didn't really write anything down, his followers did. And it will eventually become known as the Quran. It's Quran or Koran. It is the Bible. It is the holy book of Islam. And here's what you have to do, the basic parts of Islamic society. Number one, and you can see a lot of Muhammad's early life in here, a good Muslim's got to be honest in his personal and his public affairs. You can't be one thing for all the world to see in public and then go be an evil scumbag in private. Right? Think of it. What are most Arabs? They're traders, they're merchants. So you can't be a pious, holier-than-thou guy and then be a greedy scumsucker behind closed doors. You must be modest. Don't be flashy. All right? Don't be a Kardashian or one of those creepers. All right? Consuming pork and alcohol is strictly forbidden. Look at the Sepoy Rebellion. Consuming pork is a dirty animal and alcohol is evil. This is the interesting one when it comes to Islam. Improve the status of women. You cannot leave all of your property to your oldest or most favorite child. So Dr. Mike Kamada can't leave everything to Alex and Leah and leave Anna Grace out in the cold. She could at least get like a corner of the basement, maybe, like a cot, and if you're lucky, a chair. All right, no. Everything now has to be divided up equally. Careful regulation of marriage and divorce. This is a sacrament. It's a contract. Don't enter it lightly. And here's the big one. Your old tribal loyalty is gone. You now belong to Allah. Those are the rules, kind of like the Ten Commandments. Other than that, we got to do 5 things. People, can we do 5 things? We can do 5 things, right? Number 1. All right, well, we got to do this a little bit. Salvation will come to those who follow this simple code. Also in Islam, we don't need a priest. We don't need an intermediary. We will have them called imams, but you can pray directly to Allah. All right? And Islam will be built on things known as the 5 pillars of Islam. Number 1 is the profession of faith. There is no God but Allah, and Muhammad is his messenger. Right? You have to believe in one God. And when you pray, you need to ask forgiveness. When you pray or read the Quran, you must ask forgiveness. Man, I really screwed up. I know you saw that one. Please forgive me. Pillar number 1, there is only one God. All right? You must pray 5 times a day. You will face east. You will face towards Mecca. Before Muhammad died, you faced Jerusalem. And you will do this 5 times a day. Excuse me. No matter where you are and what you are doing, when the call to prayer goes out, you stop and you pray. Next, because remember, Muhammad was born an orphan, and Khadijah was a widower, all good Muslims must take an opportunity to support those who are less fortunate. Think of Mansa Musa going on his Hajj, handing out all that money. If you have the means, you should definitely help. Next is fasting. This is the 40 days of what is known as the month of Ramadan, where a good Muslim will not eat or consume liquid during daylight hours, kind of symbolically being with Muhammad out in the desert. And last but not least, you should journey to Mecca and march around the Kaaba and complete the Hajj. This is symbolically reliving Muhammad's return from Medina to Mecca. Once in your lifetime, if you are able. It is the only optional pillar. You pray and you have faith. Pray 5 times a day. You give alms to the poor. You practice Ramadan. And you go on the Hajj. Everybody good to go? All right. Whoops. All right. Now, when Muhammad is dead, the Islamic community needs a new leader. It made sense for it to be Muhammad because, well, he's the guy that Gabriel spoke to. And so they choose a new leader known as a caliph. He is the political and the religious entity for Muslims. Remember, Islam is going to be a theocracy. It's just how it is. Here is we are eventually going to get split into 2 types. There's this dark green shaded area and then the lime green shaded area. A Sunni Muslim is going to be, as you guys told me, the leader of Islam that is the best possible Muslim. Someone who has to be chosen, like being picked as the Roman Catholic Pope or the Archbishop of Canterbury. It's how you live your life, it's the practice of the religion, and it is the majority of Muslims in the world today. The dark shaded area, tiny little bit in Iraq, a little bit in, or mostly in Iran, a little bit in Saudi Arabia, are Shia or Shiite Muslims. And they believe the leader of Islam must be a direct blood descendant of the Prophet Muhammad. Muhammad was picked by Gabriel, by Allah, so his blood is special. They are the minority of Muslims in the world today. Just a couple quick things to throw in. Khadijah, Muhammad's wife, becomes his first convert. So the first convert to Islam is a woman. And we're going to go into more detail in a minute. After some arguing between a faction from Mecca and a faction from Medina, the first caliph is a guy named Abu Bakr. And Abu Bakr will be selected because he is the oldest living convert in the religion. Khadijah had died as well. So he is the second oldest living convert. From Abu Bakr through the next 4 caliphs, Islam will spread from the Atlantic Ocean all the way into Russia to Iran. It is the quickest expansion of a religion in world history. It spreads like wildfire. At this time, we have a third Islamic sect that will grow, and it is known as the Sufi orders. These Sufis are mainly missionaries. They will spread the religion eastward along the Silk Road and Indian Ocean, and they are noted for being able to adapt to many different local traditions. If you had a shrine to a local god or a saint, they would say, hey man, that's great, that works really good. Did you ever hear about our man named Allah? Oh, Jesus, we like him too. Or Buddha, that eightfold path thing, man, that kind of goes along with the 5 pillars. Check this out. They were less rigid than Shias and Sunnis, So they are able to gain many more missionaries. So here we go. This is where it gets tough. It is difficult for one individual to be a religious and a political leader at the same time. The first 5 caliphs don't have a problem with this because they personally knew Muhammad. They worked with him every day, they talked with him, they studied with him, they ate with him. They were like Jesus' 12 apostles. After that, it gets really tough. There is no longer a direct connection to Muhammad. So a group of people want to get together and they want to maintain the original religious order just like Muhammad had it. And they are religious scholars known as ulama. Think of an ulama as a Christian bishop. They are known as a person of right knowledge. They knew what was going on. And they set the standard when being governed by Islam, you need to learn Arabic. Arabic is the unifying language of Islam. From Morocco and North Africa to Indonesia, everyone will know how to speak Arabic. And they write to each other and they speak to each other and they come up with the Islamic divine law known as the Sharia. It is the governing rule book. It is what to do and what not to do. And it governs all aspects of Islamic life. Commercial, your legal, your social, and your political life. It governs everything. It tells you exactly how you are to act. If you act poorly, well then that's your problem. All right? Ever since then, it governs Islam. They don't try to become a formal religious clergy, but it happens anyway. There's a lot up here. Can I go to the next slide? Just kind of get the theme. Okay. Now, here are the reasons why Islam will spread so far, so fast. I narrowed it down to 7 or 8 bullet points. Number 1, Muhammad was tolerant of other faiths, especially Jews and Christians. They were people of the book. Remember, he studied with Jewish rabbis. He studied with Christian bishops and priests. So you had to pay a small head tax. Other than that, you were good to go. Second reason, Islam's pretty easy. We got to do 5 things, 4 if we can't make it. We go to church on Friday. We don't drink alcohol. We don't eat pork. Man, this really ain't... It's really not all that bad. Like, even we can do that, can't we, Michael? I mean, that's like 5 things. I can 4.5. Like, I can probably pull that off. I do like my bacon, but I can always get like turkey bacon or whatever. It kind of tastes like cardboard, but whatever. Anyhow, there had been an ongoing war between the Byzantine Empire and the Sassanid Empire in ancient Persia. So the 2 empires had heavily taxed their people who were tired of warfare. And the Muslims come in and are seen as liberators. Man, you worship Allah, don't even worry about it. And Islamic society was open. Like Muhammad, you could start out as an orphan, become the owner of a business, and become a religious prophet. All other across the world, whether you were in Japan, whether you were in China, whether you were in the Byzantine Empire, whether you were in feudal Europe, whether you were in India, there was a rigid social hierarchy. Whatever social class you were in, you couldn't get out of. Not so in Islam. And everybody knows the Muslims. These cats have been traitors for hundreds and hundreds of years. And the Muslims were smart. If I'm going to move into Hannah and Anna's territory, am I going to blow up their buildings and their roads and their bridges? No. Why?
Because you can.
then I'm going to have to rebuild them. So I will do as little damage to infrastructure as possible, and they have really good military leaders. And here are the first 5 caliphs. Abu Bakr reigns for 3 years. Umar and Uthman, 10 years and 12 years. We get down here to Ali, who is Muhammad's son-in-law, and Mu'ayyina. By the time we get to this guy, we begin to have an internal civil war. We're fighting over being Shia or Shiite. But these guys from 632 to 100 years later to 732, Islam will go over to the Indus River Valley, up into France and Russia. It is the fastest growing religion of all time. Here you go. By 732, they are stopped by Charles Martel, Charlemagne's grandfather, in France. But so from the Indus River Valley all the way to France, that is much of Central Asia, the Middle East, North Africa, Spain, and France is under Islamic rule. Give you guys a second to get that. Just know that it's really big, grande, not like, what's her name? Isn't there a singer named Grande? That one. She any good? I don't know. Her name means large, so I don't know. At Starbucks, so whatever. Anyway, the Umayyad dynasty, they are the first dynasty. They've got the very difficult job of the switch in Arabic culture of being desert nomads to living an urban lifestyle. They're now living in permanent cities. And they make the first Islamic capital in Damascus, Syria, a once beautiful town. Everybody good? I'm seeing pencils moving, so I'm going to wait. Is this stuff sounding familiar? You guys like, oh yeah, I got this? Yes. All right. When did we do this? November. Oh, I don't remember none. All right. So here we go. Here's the spread. All right. All right. Here we go to Muhammad. Here we go during the Umayyads. And then we are going to push on. So from here, all the way upper into southern Russia, all the way over to the Indus River Valley. Man, that's pretty awesome. So the Umayyads will be attacked by former friends, the Abbasid dynasty, who claimed the Umayyads had left true Islam and they were no longer very nice. And here is where the religion is going to split. The Abbasids will form a new capital in Baghdad, Iraq, which was Saddam Hussein's capital, very nice, benevolent dictator that we removed because he wasn't nice and benevolent. And the religion will splinter into Sunni and Shiite at this point. Islamic technological achievements. All right. The Muslims begin to make a thing known as Damascus steel. It is iron with carbon infused into it, and Damascus steel is extremely sharp and tough. In the Middle Ages, in the Crusades, a knight's iron broadsword will be cleaved in half by an Islamic Damascus steel sword. Because icons are outlawed in Islamic societies, their art is geometric mosaics. They will make domes less conical shaped like the U.S. Capitol building, but they are flatter and covered large areas. Think of like a sports, like the New Orleans Superdome. Literature, they begin to write many tales like Aladdin, Sinbad the Sailor, all that good stuff. They create the world's first universities known as a madrasa, where you got free education. They were highly mathematically advanced, and they became excellent at medicine. Al-Razi was a famous doctor who learned that a good bedside manner, a smile and positivity helped a patient recover. He also invented stitches and having hospitals in clean, sanitary conditions. When you guys take Great American Conflicts, you will see me amputate a leg with a hacksaw blade with no anesthetic without washing my hands. Would Dr. Mike ever do surgery without washing his hands? No, he would not, all right? Back in the Civil War, doctors were butchers because they knew how to cleave meat away from a bone. You ever hear the term sawbones? All right, well, that's an old doctor because they were butchers, all right? Muslims were way ahead of this. And the biggest cultural contribution is that the Muslim scholars preserved all the Greco-Roman and Hellenistic learning when Europe was in the morass of the Dark Ages. You guys hanging in there? We're a little bit more than halfway done. Ready? All right, there's Damascus steel, there's a minaret, there's a dome, there's mosaics, there's Sinbad. You guys good? Those are pretty pictures. All right, here is Islam in 632 is here. The orange is expansion by 661. The yellow is by 750. 750 is before the reign of Charlemagne. 750, the kingdom of Axum is still over here. 750, Japan is just forming itself. They are still borrowing from the Tang Dynasty China. It's just before the kingdom of Ghana and the Mayas over in the New World. Everybody got me? Okay, good. I'm going to pretend that was a yes. All right. Now, for part 2 of today's action, let's spread Islam even farther. Ooh. You guys need like a break for a minute? No? You guys so drooling dumb you have no idea what I'm saying right now?
Just a little tired.
We can call it, guys. I mean, I don't mind going home. I mean, I don't care. Trust me. And do I care? No, I do not. All right. So anyhow. All right. Islamic expansion. We got two groups. We got the Sunnis. I'll show you how quick this one is, guys. Look, here it is, right? We got a couple pictures. We're going to talk about pretty stuff. And we're talking about some crusades. And there. See? It's like 20 slots. You guys can have 20 slots, can't you? People hate it when I do that on the video. Poor Anna Soderling was like, oh, that was a mess. Trust me, I know. So Anna, you got a shout out. You can tell her Sierra. I gave her a shout out. So anyway, all right. We have a big problem. The Sunnis and the Shiites are going to have one of my favorite world history terms, a schism. We're going to split over the term caliph. In the middle of this area, we're going to get the great Genghis Khan. He is going to spread from Asia, and he's going to come over, and he's going to be like a bowling pin. All the Muslims were lined up like bowling pins, and then they are going to scatter. And that is going to create several different caliphates, or Islamic kingdoms, at one time. They're no longer going to be unified. Everybody with me? All right, Genghis Khan, wrecking ball. Didn't, what's her face, Miley Cyrus, like a wrecking ball, isn't that her? Genghis Khan is a Miley Cyrus. Ooh, ah. Scary. All right, terrifyingly so. All right, she's a billionaire, so I guess she doesn't care. And Islam is going to be defined by orthopraxy. Orthopraxy is what you, or how you practice your religion, right? Orthopraxy is what you do. All Muslims, Sunni or Shiite, follow the Sharia. They have the same 5 pillars. The Christian world is more defined by orthodoxy. Christians believe the same thing, but they practice their religion differently. Some have communion every Sunday. Some have it once a month. Some use leavened bread. Some use unleavened bread. Some priests can marry. Some can't. While Muslims, Sunni or Shiite, are defined by their practice of their religion. So by the time we get this ball rolling, we're going to have a tiny Umayyad empire up here in Spain. We're going to have Fatimids, who are Shiites in North Africa, and we're going to have Abbasids over here in Iran. All 3 caliphates follow the same 5 pillars. Now, Sunnis, however, are going to dominate the religion. And ulama are the political elites. This is not something that they strive to be, but because they were smart, different people sought out their advice. They were advisors to regional rulers. They were teachers in madrasas. They were simply smart guys. And when people asked a question, their words simply carried a little bit more weight. Like, man, those are like smart dudes, all right? So I had a question about math. Who in here would I ask to help me out? I would ask Xavier, right? Xavier, what math are you in again? Something about calculus. I don't even know. NASA Math 12, space trajectory. We don't know what Xavier's doing, because I can barely add with a calculator. So anyway, 2 plus 2, like those little kids on that game show. 2 plus 2 times 2. 4, 8, 16. Heck, I don't even know. All right? I would go to Xavier because he's really good in math. And this is where madrasas are created. Madrasa is the world's first college. And they started in tiny little mosques in the 850s, right about the time that Charlemagne, his grandsons, were carving up Europe, right about the time that the Mayas were big over in Mexico and Ghana and Africa. The ulama began to teach. And this eventually becomes a permanent job. And what distinguishes Islamic teachers from European universities and Confucian scholars is the teachers personally certify when you're done. Daniel's got it. Paul's got it. Sierra's got it. Phoebe and Bodie, well, it's going to take you guys probably a couple more years. All right. So anyway, there's not a set curriculum. It's not junior or sophomore, junior, senior. The teacher personally certifies you when you are ready to go. And it is at this time, I miss Ken Stewart, when a new culture is born in Spain known as Moorish culture. It's very similar to Alexander the Great's Hellenism, where students, all right, we're going to have a combination of Spanish, of Arabic, and of North African culture. And it's going to be the home of what's called the Western Caliphate. And near the beautiful Spanish city of Cordoba is going to be the Alhambra Castle. And there a madrasa is going to be built by an interesting grandfather-grandson tag team, Abd al-Rahman, the first and the third. And they are going to welcome not only Christian students, but Islamic students to Alhambra. So Alhambra is like the Timbuktu of Spain. And the students are going to work together. They're going to make great advancements in math and science. But the Islamic and Christian students would interact in the classroom. As soon as the class was over, what happens? They bolted. So no matter what happened, they could never get everyone to work together. After Abd al-Rahman III dies, it begins the era of Spanish reconquest, where the Spanish nobles wanted to drive Muslim from Spain. This is the famous story of El Cid that I told you, where the guy won even though he was already dead. All right. There's the Alhambra Mosque and Castle, beautiful snow-capped mountains. Believe it or not, this guy and this guy, this is grandpa and that's grandson. And they look almost the same. There's their big statue. This is the basement. It's very pretty with like these candy cane arches, but it's really big. In the old days, they didn't have exit signs, and people would go down here and get like lost because everything looks the same. I'm like looking for the light. Follow the lights. Follow the light. Anyway. It is during this time that we got Harun al-Rashid. Harun al-Rashid is the Islamic Medici family. He is a great patron of the arts. And during the dark ages of Europe, he sponsors a lot of education, a lot of artwork, a lot of literature. And he gives rise to the term Dar al-Islam. It means the abode of Islam. It is wherever Islam is practiced. Dar al-Islam. He is seen as the perfect role model caliph. This is who you want you to model yourself after. All right, Ms. Raj is still going strong. You guys got it? All right. Now, Dar al-Islam is going to cause a splintering in leadership. This is the time when Islam will switch from being a religion dominated by Middle Eastern Arabs to a more Turkish-dominated religion with the Mamluks, the Seljuks, and the great Ottoman Empire. Leadership changed every other day as we have Shiite Fatimids fighting Sunni Abbasids. Every other day there was a new leader. And coming into the play in the year 1000, right before the Crusades, was a group of warriors known as the Seljuks. Seljuks were a warrior arm, sort of like the Aztecs were for the Toltecs and the Zhao Chao dynasty were for the Shang. And in 1037, they liberate the city of Baghdad from those hated Shiites. And they come up with a new name for their leader, the Sultan. The Sultan means temporary ruler. We are here representing Allah on the earth, but we're only human. We're only here very temporarily. All right. Now, the Seljuks are going to conquer most of the Middle East. As you can see, this was the old Fatimid territory, and you can see slowly but surely the Seljuks dominate. They take over the cities of Mecca and Medina, and what the Seljuks did, since they control much of Turkey, they love trade. Trading is what had always made the crossroads of the world and the city of Constantinople important. So they build roads, they build bridges, they build hotels, they build water wells and plant fruit trees to encourage people to travel on the Silk Road. When it got too dangerous, people went down and traveled by the Indian Ocean. This cost them a lot of money. So they want to keep things safe. One of their great leaders is the war leader Saladin. Saladin will briefly unite the Arabic tribes before he goes into combat in the Third Crusade. He will pretty much wipe out the Fatimid dynasty, named for Muhammad's daughter Fatima. And the Third Crusade is remembered as Saladin fought famous English King Richard the Lionheart. It gives birth to the Robin Hood legend. While King Richard is down here, his idiot brother is forced to sign the Magna Carta. So this is right around 1000 to 1200. You guys with me? All right. Incas and Aztecs and Mayas are at their all-time height and powerful, and Mali is in power in Africa, and coming out of China is a guy known as Genghis Khan is on his way. There's Richard, there's Saladin. Remember the story I told you? Saladin walks into his camp and says, here's my horse. I want you to be well mounted when I beat you. All right, that's that guy. All right. Now we got the Mamluk dynasty. Mamluks are also Turks, and they are the only dynasty ever to withstand the Mongols. They are led by a guy named Baybars. Very easy to remember. Bar by the bay, Baybars. All right. We're almost done here, guys. I promise. And Baybars is going to stop the Mongols and shove them down to the Crimean Peninsula. It is Baybars and the Mamluks who will hold out, and it will cause the Mongols to fire the Black Plague-infested bodies over the walls, spreading the Black Plague. The good thing about it is the Silk Road was open, have a good day, Phoebe, but the Black Plague will stretch to Europe, to Africa, and to Asia. And it's at this time that the Mongol armies are spreading out of Asia. And each one of Genghis Khan's grandsons will take a fourth of the army and conquer. 1/4 goes up into Russia. They convert to Islam and become known as the Golden Horde. 2 in the middle kind of stay normal Mongol, but 1 in the south converts to Islam. And one of the grandsons, a guy named Hulagu, will come down and he will attack the city of Baghdad, and he'll kill most of the Muslims in there, 1258. But he spares Christians and he spares Hebrews. And the European world is cheering. Yes, Islam is about to die out, when out of the south comes another Mongol war leader, a guy named Berk. It's Hulagu's first cousin. But Berk had converted to Islam, and they have a massive throwdown in the Middle East. And when it's over, Hulagu Khan is defeated. And the 2 cousins, former allies, fighting each other over religion, signals the breakup of the massive Mongol Empire, which is going to last from about 1229 to 1279, and it will remain over in China, but not in the Middle East. So here is the Sultanate taken over by the Mamluk Turks. There's Saladin, there's Berk, and there's Hulagu. Okay, we good? Great. Anyway. A descendant of Berk is going to be Tamerlane, the half-Mongol, half-Turk war leader who will boomerang out of the Middle East and go farther south. The Mongols are going to come out of China, get over here, and then boomerang on a southern route. Except Tamerlane was interested not in conversion but sheer conquest, and he leaves a path of death and destruction behind him. He is doing this during the heart of the European Renaissance and the beginning of Prince Henry's School of Navigation. When he is done, there will be three main caliphates. One in Spain, one in North Africa, and one in the Middle East. Islam will be split up into thirds. All right. It is Tamerlane who will cross the Indus River and get into modern-day India. This will cause a fracturing of traditional Indian society when a lot of Indians convert to Islam. This is done by two groups. Some of the merchants will convert to Islam to make it easier to trade. A lot of the lower caste people will convert to Islam so they can get out of the hated caste system. The caste system just sucks. There's a battle between the two because Islam is a newcomer where Hinduism is a river valley civilization. Hinduism is polytheistic, where Islam is monotheistic. Hinduism has that caste system, and Islam is an open society. And Hindus are relegated to be a secondary class citizen and had to pay taxes in their own country. And that's garbage. So, all right. This will create, we're almost done, guys, look, like 4 slides. The Gunpowder empires, of which there are 3. The Mamluks and the Seljuks will merge and form the Ottoman Empire that will last all the way until 1918. They've got big absolute leaders. Remember, Mohammad II and Suleiman the Magnificent. It is the Ottomans who will finally capture Constantinople in 1453 and rename it Istanbul. They will control from Hungary to Saudi Arabia, and they're given power because they manage gunpowder, and they're Sunni. All right, so here's the Ottoman Empire. In the middle here, we have the Safavid Empire, which lasts, about 250, 300 years. They are, along with having a really cool mustache, they are a Shiite dynasty. And they're boxed in between the Mughals and the Ottomans, and so they were always at war. But because they manage a large part of the Silk Road, they're tolerant of other faiths because they want to make money. Everybody got that? All right, you guys are so done over here. Last but not least, we've got the great Mughal dynasty, which we know all about. Akbar, who was religiously tolerant, had a great empire, but his grandsons were idiots, and they gave territory to the British East India Company, costing them their empire. All of the damage done by Tamerlane and the wars will be patched up by the Sufis, who will spread Islam into Southeast Asia. One last accomplishment by the Mughals was, in order to become a doctor, you had to take a legitimate medical exam and pass it before you could work on people. And there is Akbar sitting down. There is idiot Shah Jahan. There is the Taj Mahal. And there is the abode of Islam. Guys, in 1 hour and 4 minutes, we have just went from 632 to like 1800 with Islam. Bang.